We hear so much about Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland as how integral they are to the Man City push for a fourth successive title, but it seems that Phil Foden is becoming absolutely critical to their push for yet more honours. And the big thing about Foden is he's now establishing himself as a permanent member of that side. And the question is, Dan, can he do that also for England? Because there's always been a lot of questions about where he fits, how he fits in. He's a left-sided player. Is he central? How does he fit?
I think fundamentally that is Gareth Southgate's job, is how do I get performances out of Phil Foden for England that he delivers for Manchester City. And I know a lot of people saying you've got to play him through the middle, but I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of his best performances for England have come from out wide, and he does have a certain amount of licence to come inside. But I think we have to be very careful when we're making comparisons between England and Manchester City, because the players are very different, and you could very much argue that Manchester City have got a better squad, certainly probably a better starting 11 than England have, and that Phil Foden's only able to do what he does for City because of what he has around him.
But nobody thinks of Foden really as an out-and-out left-sided player. If you look at England, whether you think these players are in form or not, you have his teammate Jack Grealish, you have Marcus Rashford, you have Raheem Sterling, who are clearly much more left-sided players, and we always think of Foden as being able to do a bit more. Yet when it comes to England, the only way it seems to me that you can squeeze him into an England side is to put him on the left.
Yes, and I think in an ideal world, I think Southgate's not alone in this. He likes inverted wingers. He likes a left footer coming in from the right wing and a right footer coming in from the left. But as you say, with I think doubts this season about the overall form and indeed game time of Jack Grealish and Marcus Rashford at Manchester United, I think you then get into space. Well, where do you put him? Can you pick him ahead of Bukayo Saka on the right wing? Probably not. Can you pick him ahead of Jude Bellingham in that kind of 10 position? No, you can't. Do you have to try and find a way to get him in? Yes, I think you do, and I think you do play him off the left, and you give him they're not stupid, these players. I mean, Bellingham and Saka and Foden are more than capable of moving around and making a fluid front line, and we see it all the time where you might start with the two, and I think it happens with Saka at Arsenal. Sometimes he'll be swapped over, and as they change formations at City, then Foden might swap wings. It's not beyond the wit of man to make this work.
But as we approach Euro 2024, I think a lot of football fans, general England fans, would say, tell you what, why don't we get rid of this obsession with we've got to have Henderson or a Calvin Phillips in the centre of the park? Why don't we let Declan Rice play as the more holding midfield player, and then you can have Bellingham and Foden ahead of them, and everybody's happy?
Well, we're happy until perhaps we play one of the real heavyweights of European or world football, and we find ourselves with only one defensive-minded midfield player, and then wonder why we're getting overwhelmed by the French midfield or the Portuguese midfield.
We don't win trophies. Maybe we have to be bolder, and we have to get on that front foot, and that 3 would be the one maybe to ignite us better than it does at the moment when you have a player in, say, Jordan Henderson, who, let's be honest, is waning as a player. He might be a 6 out of 10 sort of player, but you know that if Declan Rice was able to play in that position properly, we'd have a player who's going to give you 7 or 8 and might be the difference.
No, I agree with that, and I think in an ideal world you would have as much of this attacking talent as we have at the moment with England in the team as possible, but we're not. I think some of the people who say, well, he's got to play in the middle, you then think, well, who then plays alongside him? When Southgate has played as he did at the World Cup against both Senegal and France, he did start with a 4-1-4-1 formation, which had Rice as the holder, but ahead of him he had Bellingham and Henderson, and then wide he had Saka and Foden with Foden on the left. And then, although it's nominally a 4-1 form, you know that when you're out of possession, that Henderson is going to drop back and help Rice out. I'm just not convinced that against the very best teams you can afford to have only one defensive or one midfield player with real defensive mind. We know that Guardiola demands of all his players that they work really hard off the ball. But I don't think anybody would say that is a primary strength of Foden's game is having the physicality to go back and win the ball. That's not his job, and I just fear that if you play Rice, and by the way, I think playing Rice just as a holder is a bit of a waste of him. I'd rather see him ahead next with Bellingham in the middle of that 4, and have Phillips, provided he regains form and match fitness behind him. No,
I don't think that's going to work. But the important thing is you've got to get Foden into the England team. If the only way is on the left, then so be it. But I still think you could make him as part of the three, and I'll still drop right back. And at City, he's got to be in there. But what I am starting to wonder about is where does Grealish fit into all of this for club and country?
Well, the fact that he's not getting picked at the moment is going to be a worry for him. I think we've seen in the past, not least with players like Calvin Phillips, that one of the qualities that Southgate has is loyalty, and with Harry Maguire, and that just because Jack Grealish may not be getting the game time he wants at the moment doesn't mean he's out of the running. And we've still got there's plenty of time, and there's lots of games to be played, and he's bound to get more game time as the time goes on.
I don't understand how he's going to get game time at City right now. You've got Foden playing so well, Doku's coming back from injury, he clearly is first pick ahead of Grealish, and has been coming back from injury, coming on as sub. Where on earth does Grealish get a game?
I think, as I say, I think he's got enough credit in the bank from what he's done over the last 2 or 3 years to at least merit a place on the plane, but on the substitutes bench. And I think probably at the moment, or maybe he is a player who can bring something different, and I think you would rather have him coming off the bench and able to provide that moment of inspiration. I mean, just as a for instance, in the during the last Euros, there are a couple of, well, at least one. There's one particular occasion where he came off the bench and just made a difference. It was his cross for one of Harry Kane's headed goals. I would still have him there, but as you say, the wide options we thought we had on the left aren't nearly as
back to smaller squads as well for England.
Yeah,
only 23.
Only 23.
And there's been clamours for even bringing Ross Barkley back. We talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold being pushed into midfield and stuff like that as well.
Yeah,
you are going to have a very difficult job picking a 23, which includes Jack Grealish. Phil Foden definitely in it.
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure how Jack Grealish is getting even into the 23 now.
Well, if you're picking maybe six forwards in that group, I think he probably gets in. But you can make the argument and say perhaps his former Manchester City teammate Cole Palmer. Do you take? Is he your young wild card, or do you go with the person you know has delivered at senior international level instead of him? I think it's an interesting dilemma for him. But I think, and as you say,
Conor Gallagher, James Maddison, all these sort of players are all knocking on the door and are starting games at a time when Grealish isn't.
I mean, I almost wonder, much as I like him as a player, I wonder how well Maddison's got to play after his injury in order to really be sure of getting on that plane. Because if you've got Bellingham who can play there, and you've also got Foden who can switch in there, or they can rotate with each other, I wonder in a 23-man squad how difficult the cut-off is for Maddison.
But it feels like that Southgate's forgiven him for going off to the casino that time.
Oh yeah, I think
has brought him back into the fold. And let's be honest, Maddison's done pretty well since he signed for Spurs. He's had some injury problems, but he's done pretty well since he signed. It's certainly somebody who loves the big occasion and looks like he can influence England, although he hasn't really done it as an England player yet, has he?
No, and I think he does provide something different. I think his eye for a pass, his forward thinking, playing on the half term. I think he gives England that, and obviously Spurs, he gives that forward impetus. Whereas certain other central midfielders, their first instinct is sideways and maybe backwards. His is always forward. And I think in the modern game where it's all about taking advantage of turnovers of ball and quick transition, he is someone who can look up, see a pass and play it. There's not going to be any hesitation. I'd love to see him in there, and I love him as a player, but I think with all the dilemmas going on with those attacking players, I think you have to say Maddison would have to go as a forward as opposed to a midfielder. I think the competition for place is going to be interesting, especially as you say, because of Grealish and Rashford and how well are they doing? You
would say out of Grealish, Rashford, Sterling, maybe two of those three are going to miss out.
Yeah, and you'd argue perhaps over at times you'd say, well, should Sterling go? I mean, there's clearly something happening there with Sterling, even when he was doing very well early in the season in let's face it, a struggling Chelsea team. He was not getting picked for the squad, and there's got to be a reason for that. But I think you say those three players, I think it would be a surprise if more than two went, and as you said, it could be only one of them goes to Germany.
There has also been discussion about Bellingham playing up front, of course, either alongside Kane or as his replacement were Kane to be injured, or if ever Kane was ever substituted, that Bellingham moves up, and that might solve your midfield dilemma, because there's not an obvious deputy to Kane, really. You can argue Ollie Watkins, Calvert-Lewin,
Dominic
Solanke, but have they all really staked a proper claim to be that person to fill in for Kane when either he's injured or off the pitch?
I think in an ideal world you'd have had someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin retaining form and fitness over the time, and he was involved in the Euros when they were held in England. But yet no one's made a compelling case, and the problem is there is no one quite like Harry Kane. There's very few people who do exactly what he does. Probably the closest, and having spoken to people who worked with Solanke a long time, actually Solanke is probably the closest to them all in his ability to kind of combine the roles of a 9 and a 10 that Kane does. I mean, sometimes with Kane you almost feel it's like that famous kind of Warner Brothers cartoon where Bugs Bunny is playing every base and catching the ball and pitching the ball, and it's all the time you think, well, Harry Kane's best at picking the ball up. If only he could then pass it to himself up front, then we'd be absolutely mint. But yeah, I don't think anybody's cemented that position to be the understudy to Harry Kane, but that's because Harry Kane is, certainly by the figures and perhaps by quality of player, is the best striker England have ever had. So that's no.
Just finally, we have a lot of players in form. We have a few out of form. Do you think this is the best England squad you've seen as we head for the Euros?
No, because I think
this is the one that's supposed to win it, though.
Well, I know, but the squad with the best players does not necessarily win. If you only have to look at the golden generation. If you think
forget how old you are, Dan.
Yes.
You don't take us back that far.
Yeah. You think. Yeah, exactly. I know. I don't look it. Look at the fag end of the golden generation when Rooney arrived. That combination of players probably on paper was the best we've had. But as we know, successive managers could not find a way to get Scholes and Lampard and Gerrard to play together and play well. It's all about creating a team. This is what brings us back to the Foden thing again. Foden has to be, if he keeps playing as he does, he has to be in the team, and the primary job of the England manager is to get as close to the Manchester City Phil Foden onto the pitch for England. Now, my argument is he doesn't have to play in the middle to deliver that. Foden himself has said that up to the World Cup, but certainly that his best performance for England was against Senegal in the last 16, where, guess what, he played off the left but had a certain amount of licence to so he doesn't have to be in the centre to affect the game. He was credited with 2 assists in that game against Senegal, but actually had a hand in all 3 goals. So he doesn't need to be in the need to be in the middle of the field to be central to England's plans. But it's all about getting the right blend, and I'll tell you what, if we end up playing that formation where we have Bellingham and Foden in the middle, plus 2 wingers and only 1 guy holding, and we lose in the quarter-final or semi-final of the Euros, then I'll come back to you and say, told you so.
All right, we've got to be bold if we're going to win it. We can do it if we find the right place for Phil Foden.